Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Namaste viewers, welcome to Jaipur Dialogue USA. Today we are going to talk about the eternal question which has been going on for a very long time, freeing Hindu temples. Without much ado, I wanted to make one announcement, and that is please subscribe, like, share, and support our program. And please ask questions through the super chat if you have any. We have a very distinguished panel. Panel is in the sense that we have Rangarajan Narasimha ji from Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. It is important to bear that in mind because he is Namaskar, and he is he is in Chennai. He's one of the fighters for freeing Hindu temple. He has his own YouTube channel, and his Twitter handle is Free Temples. So it is very important for us to hear from him because the temple dialogue, the temple challenge, has started in Tamil Nadu in 1951, as far back as then, soon after independence. And from the Americas, I have great privilege in welcoming my friend, Dr. Praveen Sinha, who I think was critical enabler for this show to happen as quickly as it did, because Sinhaji connected with Narasimhanji and we began to have this conversation. So welcome to both of you. So I will start the conversation with Mr. Rangarajanji. Mr. Rangarajan, please share your thoughts on this. You have been in the forefront of the battle of freeing Hindu temples. The question is that in secular India, Hindus and Hindu temples are the ones which are regulated as per the constitution, provisions of the constitution. Why is this discrimination against Hindus? And since the Tamil Nadu has led this entire revolt against Hindu temples, where do we stand today? And my key question always is in these matters that knowing what we know, knowing what is happening, what do we do? Where do we go from here? Rangarajanji.
First of all, thank you for hosting me, Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha. I live in Srirangam, Trichy, and not in Chennai, just for a correction.
Yeah, that's okay.
Basically, your question is that why is that there is a discrimination with regards to the Hindu temples? I don't see there is any discrimination, honestly.
Okay.
The law is very clear in that Constitution of India, while Article 26 provides religious freedom to every religion for every religious denomination. In Hindi, the denomination is called Sampradaya. That is how it is translated in the Hindi version of the Constitution of India. So every Sampradaya is free to manage its religious institutions subject to certain conditions. This is a fundamental right. All fundamental rights are subject to certain conditions. The thing is that for some reason, Hindu temples are being categorized as the temples which needs those restrictions or which needs those supervision by the government. The primary reason being Hindu temples are wealthy. Our country is, the modern science, the modern data may say that our country is a few thousand years old, but our countries are billions of years old. The wealth that is here is from all the four yugas that we are in, and we are in the there are several yugas which has gone away, and the temples that are there forever, and the kings of the past had taken good care of the temples and bestowed the temples with a lot of wealth. And this wealth was the one which the invaders targeted when they invaded our country. They looted our country left, right, and center. Recently, it was accounted as nearly $48 trillion of wealth has been looted away from India. And most of this wealth is the wealth of the country, which is part of the temple. And India was a Hindu country all the time. But when the British came, they thought that I'm sorry, it is raining.
It's okay.
I'm
Relax.
saying, so when they came in, they thought that the best way to loot the wealth of the temple is to control the temple, and they said that the administration of the temple is very bad, and they want to administer, and that's what they did. This was done also by the Mughals, who came earlier. In fact, they were even worse. They they had imposed jizya tax on us for those who want to continue to practice the religion. So the loot of wealth was happening for a long time. And once when our country got freedom, the current babus thought it is a good way to make money, and they continued this control. Obviously, when British ruled, the Christian churches were free because they just wanted to control the wealth which is there in the Hindu temples and then take it away. And of course, when the Muslims ruled us, they wanted to only control Hindus and not the Muslim mosques, and so they were also free. And when we got freedom, there were two religions which were free, and one was thought to be thought to have to require uh, control, and that is what has happened. So it is a fate of our country, in my opinion, but nothing is lost, in my opinion, as well, because Article 26, which governs all these religious institutions, denominations, gives us the fundamental right to manage and monitor and administer, propagate our religious tenets. But temples, Hindu temples, are still, like I said, it is under the purview of the government. Our law is very clear, and it only says that the government can have a supervisory control on the temples, not the total control. What do you mean by supervisory control? Like I said, the fundamental freedom is subject to certain conditions. And one of such conditions is to ensure that the wealth of the religious endowment, or the religious institution, temples for that matter, is being spent for the purpose for which it is endowed, basically. And the government comes into a temple by saying this wealth is being mismanaged, and so we want to ensure that the mismanagement is under control. And they come under that pretext, and they say that we are here to ensure that the management is better so that the endowment's money is utilized for the purposes for which it was endowed, for the religious reasons, on the paper. But in fact, what they do is they continue the loot that the invaders did even today. Because even today, in spite of the loot that has happened by the invaders, our temples are still rich. They are still rich because of the population of India, basically. Even if a person donates 1 rupee, you can imagine per day, you can imagine the amount of money that can be generated by the temples. So temples will have enough funds because of the faith, because of the attachment that we have, and because of the upbringing and because of the culture that this country has. The charity is part and parcel of us, our genes. So we say Atiti Devo Bhava. That means we want to that charity is there, right there. So we don't need to be taught about charity. We don't need to be taught about management. Yet people say that your management is not good. So we are wanting to ensure that the management is right. So right now the control as per law on Hindu temples can be, for valid reasons, only on the secular aspects, that is management of the wealth, income and expenditure, and that to a supervisory control and not a total control. Even if the government is wanting to see it, I have no issues for somebody to ensure that the books of the temple are right. I have no problems. It is like income tax department trying to have an eye on what kind of income that you make, how the money is coming into your accounts, how you are spending it, where is the money, what is the source of funds. There is nothing wrong in it. As long as I can give proper accounts, there is no issues.
So,
Similarly, the government can have
Rangarajan
a say. Yes, sir.
can I ask you a quick question here?
Sure.
So, if I understand you correctly, the government's oversight role is very heavy-handed, and you will like the temples to be out of those clutches of the government, where in
Yes,
the name of mismanagement, they are using
exactly.
their powers too extensively. So, let me
Correct.
propose to you the following. When since we are talking about the reforms here, uh, since independence, we have moved quite far away from governance mechanisms that existed at that time. Why not have a system of control which is through bodies that are capable of doing that? Say, for example, every temple has to be audited by a certified public accountant. Instead of the government laying its hand and trying to control and assuring that everything is done, why not have it be done by certified public accountants or chartered accountants who look at the numbers and file a non-profit tax return in which the government can also see, but the clutches of the government are basically taken off, because we know that whenever the government is put under control, they tend to generate a lot more inefficiencies, and bureaucracies are never efficient. If anything, they are power exerting authorities. So, what do you think of this idea of having all temples be audited by chartered accountants in India and filing a non-tax, non uh, as a non-profit tax exempt status with the tax department? So the power is taken away from the government and given back to the temples, but the entire checks and balances are still maintained.
Okay. I will clarify one thing. The power is
Okay.
never with the government to start with. The power is with the trustees of the temple. The temples are always supposed to be managed by trustees who can be three to five. At least I am talking about Tamil Nadu. It is the same in Andhra Pradesh. It is the same in Karnataka. So the temple is supposed to be managed by trustees of the religious institution, that is the temples. And who are these trustees? These trustees are locals who have good conduct, who care for the sampradaya, who are involved in the sampradaya, and who are able to manage the temple's wealth. This has been the way the temple is managed wrong from time immemorial. Basically, there will be dharmakartas, which we call here. I do not know what they call in the north side of India. These dharmakartas will ensure that the wealth of the temple is managed properly and accounts is being read every day before the god. The audit is done every single day. That was the situation then. Now the government has effectively removed all these trustees and then put in executive officers in their place who are government servants. Okay, these government servants now take a position of fit person who act in the place of trustees and then manage the wealth of the temple. And this management is supposed to be audited. The law is very clear that there must be a budget, there must be an expense and income, and there must be an audit at the end of the year, every single year. In Tamil Nadu, 44,000 temples are under the supervisory control of the Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowments Department, which is under the government. The law HRNC Act very clearly states that audit must be done every single year by a certified auditor. But the government, on the other, what they have done is they have created an audit department under the HRNC department. They created auditors under the commissioner of HRNC, and they try to audit. They claim that they are auditing, and we know how the audit is happening. I have filed a case in Madras High Court asking for the court to direct the government to conduct all audits of all temples through CAG. The case is pending and it is under it is the hearing is going on. I am hopeful that the government will be directed by the courts.
Uh, okay,
No,
I think you.
I will come back to this particular issue, but we are talking about free Hindu temples. So if the government is running the show, as it seems, through its own administrative and bureaucracies and everything else, and they have taken over the wealth, and they suspect foul play in the temple endowment and fund management, the question then arises, why is the call for freeing Hindu temples. That's another thing that comes to my mind. Why are we talking about, isn't it a discrimination that while churches and mosques are free from government interference, they are not held corrupt. They are doing everything that they are doing. Nobody is auditing anything. But Hindu temples are subjected to, as you rightly mentioned earlier on, because there is tremendous wealth. Do we mean to say that the churches and mosques are not wealthy? They don't need to be? Or they are very honest and Hindu temples are corrupt practices? What is the true status here then? If everything is fine, then why do we talk about freeing the temples?
Let me ask this quick clarification from Rangarajan. What is CAG that you mentioned that in your lawsuit?
That is Controller and Auditor
Yes.
General of India.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
That's
I
an
think,
independent unit like the CBI.
yes. Yeah.
yeah. So why even put through that? Why are you asking for such? Because you're basically asking them to use one hand instead of the other hand, but they're still controlling you. Why not have a system like the way it is for most of the religious institutions in the West? The temples
CAG
will
is
be
not
run by,
controlled by the government.
well, let me just reiterate and see what you think about this. As you mentioned, there should be trustees who are the
Yes.
honorable people, and let a
Yes.
chartered accountant take care of it, and you can file your tax return as a
Yes.
non-profit. Get the
Correct.
government totally out of the way. There should be
Right.
no role for government for any role in controlling the funds of the temple. Government
That
has
is the law.
literally
That is the law.
no, no,
What you're
no, no. I
saying is the
understand that.
law.
But as you're saying that there are other bodies that are doing it, why not demand that all those bodies be totally removed? They should have no role to play. The only thing is the temples will manage themselves, and there will be chartered accountants who will audit, who will submit a auditor's report, and that's good enough. Why do we need to have government playing such an active role when they are not supposed to, as you mentioned?
They are not playing an active role. They are playing a spoil sport role. They want to loot the wealth. They are not playing any active role. They are not interested in safeguarding the cash of the wealth. They are interested in looting the wealth. So they are
I
only
was using
coming in.
kind words.
No, I don't want to. I want to call a spade a spade. They are
Yeah.
just looting. This is very obvious. They come to the court and then say that their audits are pending for the past 3 years in 44,000 temples. They are shameless to say, admit in the court with an affidavit saying that they have 44,000 temples. Audit is pending for 3 years. So the law says that the trustees must manage the temple, and the law says that the trustees should audit the temples using independent auditors, and the law says that the government can supervise this activity whether it is in line with the law or not. So the law, there is nothing wrong in the law, but everything is wrong in implementation of the law. So the problem is not with the system, the laws of the land, but the problem is with this intent of the country. That is where the question for the for Jas question and answer this is basically, it is not that only Hindu temples are corruptly mismanaged and maladministrated, and not that the Christian churches or the Muslim mosques or anybody else's religious institutions are managed absolutely properly. Problem is, even if there are complaints of mismanagement in those areas, the government is anti-Hindu, particularly in Tamil Nadu. It is anti-Hindu. It is when it is anti-Hindu, they turn a blind eye to any of the. They are so kind towards the other complaints, and those complaints don't even come surface out. And even if it surfaces out, a couple of days back, I saw an article that the Madras High Court has ordered the government to relinquish its control on a dargah back to the Muslim clerics, because they have taken it over for a couple of months to ensure that some mismanagement is corrected. The court has ordered the government to give it back to the Muslims for them to manage. So the problem is, even if something comes up like that, it is, the system is such that they are so kind to the other religions for reasons I do not know what it is, but I can say from the government's perspective, they have an agenda. They have an agenda to play with, to get votes, and to be on power. Doesn't matter which party comes to the power in Tamil Nadu. At least there are two Dravidian parties are ruling here for the past 50-60 years. So they have an a Gnostic attitude. They have a Gnostic tendency. They don't even believe in God, particularly when it comes to Hindu gods. They won't say that there is no God when it comes to Christianity or Islam. They won't say that. But they will say that those who are praying God are fools and idiots. They call all sorts of names. So such a kind of attitude, it requires people to actively involve. What I see in other parts is that a mosque or a church is actively managed by Christians and Muslims, or other way around, Muslims and Christians respectively. But when it comes to Hindus, Hindu temples, there are lakhs and lakhs of temples in Tamil Nadu. Out of it, 44,000 are under supervisory control of the government. Each of these temples need at least 3 to 5, a minimum of 3, maximum of 5 people to become trustees of this temple. But the problem is, not anybody is ready to come forward to manage these temples, to become a trustee of the temple. The reason is, it is a full-time job. It is a job which is risky. It is a job which involves a lot of money. It is a job which leads, which attracts a lot of people to come in then and then try to struggle for the person. So the person is so vulnerable unless and until the person is committed, dedicated, knowledgeable, and has the willpower, they can't become trustees and then survive. That's the kind of system. And the intent is obviously nipped in the bud, basically. So people are not coming forward to become trustees, and these positions of trustees, nearly we need at least 1.5 lakh people to come forward to manage the Indian temples. If that happens, we can free temples today. I have filed a case in Madras High Court, which is also pending, and there is a verdict also given in 574 of 2015. This is a suo motu case. And in that, the court has clearly directed that they must appoint trustees to all the temples, because the government came to the court and then said 99.97% of the temples don't have trustees. So the problem is, freeing Hindu temples means who is supposed to free it from whom? Unless otherwise I go there and then start managing my temple, which is my right as per the constitution, which is the right given by the law. When there is nobody there to take over, manage the temple, just screaming from the top of the roof to say free the Hindu temples, free the temples, it's not going to happen. Nobody is going to jump from the sky to manage the temples. It is we Hindus must take the responsibility. Instead of just shouting and then making a hue and cry about this, get into one temple, make sure that the management is right, make sure that they document it and then make a blueprint out of it, present it to every other temple, and then try to make 1 to 20 and 20 to 200 and 200 to 400 and 4,000 to 40,000. This is possible only if we come forward. That is the reason why I have been screaming out from my lungs, basically, because I am asking people to come forward and then show their intent to manage a temple.
So,
What people are
Rangarajan ji,
saying is that
the question then comes about here is that this is where the problem arises. You are saying that Hindus are not coming forward to become trustees. On the other hand,
yes,
as I know, I see records of that in many temples, government is appointing non-Hindus to become trustees and administrators, whereas Hindus are not allowed to become trustees and administrators in others' affairs. So there is an element of discrimination which is very serious. There is, and I have, there was a Swaraj magazine had done a complete breakdown, and I'll read out to you, as well as for the viewers' benefit, that controlled by the state governments, Hindus, yes. Muslim, Christian, Sikhs, no. Can more places of worship be brought under government control? Hindus, yes. No, no, no for others. Government disposes of all place of or self place of worship. Yes for Hindus, no for others. Appointment of trustees, yes for Hindus. Non-Hindus can be trustees of Hindu temples, but Hindus can't. Only for people from their faith can be trustees of their administration. So there are a whole lot of issues which are very important, including educational institutions run by Hindus, not allowed, but it is allowed for all the three others. there are severe areas of government control, and you also expressed your concern,
Clearly,
whether it's for
this
politics or for vote. Where
is not
exactly are we heading
true.
towards? Where are we exactly heading towards? So there is a
That is
need
the point.
to free the temples.
True.
Where must this revolution begin from? Rangarajanji,
I
your voice is breaking, sir. He dropped out. Praveen, let's talk about this. Like
Yeah,
it's a very serious issue.
my take is very simple on this. I think I agree with him. There's a need for trustees,
Yeah.
and the trustees. I think what I heard from him on his Twitter uh, uh, posting also, and also what he's saying right now, and I want him to clarify that
Mm.
we can find Hindus to become trustees. Now that's basically in my mind, that's a question of a market in which there's a demand and supply. If he's saying that there are not enough people willing to be trustees, my first question is, are trustees paid or not? Because trustees must be paid. In the US, the church trustees are all paid. So once you start paying them, which I think they should be paid because it's a job, as soon as you start paying, the demand will increase. Uh, if you will create a demand, sorry, and then the supply will increase. And I think definitely there is a need to train these people so that they can play the fiduciary role they are supposed to play. Uh, but I think with a large aging, retiring population in
can
India, I do
Yeah,
not
yeah.
believe it should not be that big of a problem. So, Rangarajanji, we are talking about the concern that you had. Why are people not willing to become trustees? So, the first question is that in the US, if you have a trustee of a church, that is a paid position. The trustees get paid. Are the trustees in India
correct.
paid or not?
Yes,
They should be paid. And if they're paid,
they are not
they,
paid till they are not paid till last year. But my case has ensured that they will be paid.
okay. So if they are going to be
I have
paid,
got a verdict from the court saying that they must be paid.
yes.
Yes,
If they are paid, then you're talking about simply creating a supply because then the demand will go up. There is a large aging population in India, people who have been dharmic, who are now retired, and those are the kind of people who typically become trustees. So we will have to play a more active campaign in soliciting those people. There are a lot of dharmic retired people who will be happy to play such role, especially if some kind of a compensation is also tied to it, which it must be. I agree with you totally on that. So why are we having this problem? Why are we not finding trustees? Are the people not well trained? Do we need to create a supply of these people? Can something be done so that more people can come up and take that role?
yeah. To be a trustee of a temple is not a simple task. It involves multiple skills for the person. The multiple skills are not available easily. There is no institute or there is no organization which is actually training people on all these skill sets. A person may have a skill set to manage the accounts of the temple, but he may not have the wherewithal to manage the assets of the temple. Most of them are lands, in acres and acres of lands, and the management of the lands, basically, that is to let it out, to lease it out, or to cultivate crops on it. The temples are always bubbling with festivals, so that means event management is important. And when there is an event, there is a lot of people who come and participate. That means man management, crowd management is important. Legal issues may come in, so there is a legal acumen that is required. So it is a 360 degrees kind of a personality that is required. Even though people may be willing, even if they are willing, they will not have, at the current state of affairs, there is no way anybody is actually trained in all these aspects. So five people becoming trustees is not going to be enough. On the
Okay,
report that
okay.
Mr. Jar read out, one second before I finish, on the report that Mr. Jar read out, I disagree with that report. I disagree 75% of the report, because it is not true that the Hindu temples are being managed by non-Hindus. The law very clearly states that even the commissioner of Hindu Religious Endowments Department must be an Hindu. So there is no way There is no way, unless otherwise somebody proves me otherwise, at least in Tamil Nadu, that it is no way a temple is being managed by a non-Hindu. That is a wrong statement, and it is very unfortunate that magazines like this is the problem. They are trying to play with the emotions of the people. When we don't have people to manage our affairs, and when the government is actually putting their own employees as fit persons, and these employees, mind you, are Hindus, to manage the affairs of the temple, magazines like this, which are actually displaying such kind of a graphic which says the Hindu temples are being managed by non-Hindus, and Hindu temples are not allowed to run their own religious institutions. Who said? Yeah, there are so many educational institutions. There are so many temples which run educational institutions. There are so many mutts which run educational institutions. It is just that, like I said, there is not enough person who is actually interested to use the wealth of the temple for the benefit of the society. There is not enough people. It is not so that they are prevented from doing so. In fact, the government of Tamil Nadu today is starting colleges left, right, and center on temples funds. They are starting colleges and schools, which is not right, because they don't have the authority to spend the
Exactly.
wealth of the temple. It is only the trustees who have.
That is a big question, but I believe that in Andhra it has happened several places where they have put non-Hindus as trustees in temple administration. Is that true?
If that is true, it can be challenged, and they can be removed immediately. If that is true, if at all that is true, my question is, why did not anybody go to the court and then file a case against these people? That if they know that there is a person who is a non-Hindu, the law of the land very clearly states that non-Hindu cannot even enter a Hindu temple.
But
they
we
cannot even
know
enter
the
a
story.
temple.
We know the story in Kerala, where many people who were not supposed to allow to enter a temple, they were all allowed to enter by the state government. So the law is being implemented or used in a discriminatory way against the Hindu temples. Will that be correct to say so?
No. I see. My perspective is that I don't want to blame the government entirely. Government is not willingly wanting to send people. It is the lack of people to safeguard the temple. See, I have kept my doors of the house open, and the dog comes inside my house. It's not the fault of the dog. It's my fault for having left the door open. Instead of ensuring that I secure my house, I cannot blame Tom, Dick, and Harry for something which is for some things that are not happening as per my wish. There is enough provisions in the law which we can all use, utilize, and take advantage of, to ensure that all these issues are taken care of by ourselves. That is the crux of Article 26. Article 26 gives the right to manage.
That begs a question, which is I seek the answer from both of you today here. Is that if there are not enough people to run the temple administration, if Hindus are not coming forward to run the show, and the government is taking over, then why is the cry for free Hindu temples? What are we talking about?
That is a political statement. That is politics. That is what I am against. That people are trying to utilize religion. Everybody is trying to utilize religion to play politics. We are being made. See, the attempt of politicians is to keep people ignorant, to create narratives, to set narratives, play on the emotions of the people, and then get their votes, and then do what they are doing today. They don't want the people to be knowledgeable. They don't want to empower the people. Who is supposed to do it in their absence? It is the society which has to come. The Hindu religious leaders must take a serious responsibility on this. They must take it on as their duty to educate the mass. They should ensure that they will encourage the people to come forward, and there must be organizations which will support them. Most of the political parties, they make a cry that they have to free Hindu temples, but none of these political parties are interested to create one person who is capable to manage one single temple. That is the
Praveen,
issue here.
I will request Praveen Sinha ji to come in and give his thoughts. The same question to you as well.
So let me ask you this question, Rangarajan ji, and I think that will partially answer your question also. Uh, you're saying that there are not enough people coming up to become trustees, and you also said that there are not
Yes.
enough people trained to be trustees. So
Yes.
so is it correct for me to interpret from your statement that we do not have enough trustees because we don't have enough people to be trustees? So is there a need to train people who can become trustees? Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it is a fair statement. The second part is a fair statement. We have
Okay.
lots of people who can become trustees.
Okay.
You said that there is a group which is retired who is ready. I think I'm going to say have a say on that as well. Why should it be
Okay.
retired people who have to go to the temple and struggle? Because it is a full-time job. This is almost a 24/7 job. It needs a youngster. If a
Okay. So let
company has to be successful, you look for a CEO who is an youngster, who has got experience, who has got talent to ensure that the company is managed properly.
okay. So let
A
me
company management is very
let me try,
go ahead.
because I'm coming from the Western model here. Here we have trustees,
Yes,
but trustees have a supervisory role. They don't run the churches.
correct.
The churches are run by religious leaders, like pastor could be a pujari. They'll be run by
Right,
business managers who will manage the business. So, like the way you talked about managing
right.
the assets of the temple, they will have a lawyer, legal team who will deal with the legal issues. There's one, and
Exactly.
they will also have volunteers who will basically play the role of organizing events. And volunteers sometimes they may have a full-time person. So what I'm trying to say is that trustees in the
Correct.
US don't have to be 24/7 jobs, because they are basically experienced
Right,
people who've seen the word, and they only provide more of a visionary role. There are 100%
right.
young active people who are business managers, legal team if there is a need, if it's a very big church, and they will also have people who
Exactly.
organize events. So I think that's the business model
Right.
that I'm thinking of. And I think in that regard, the
Mhm.
trustees need not be in short supply. Anybody who has seen the world, who knows what Sanatan Dharma, Hinduism is all about, who knows what the temple should be doing, will have to hire people to do that job. And typically, I will say in the US, retired people have done a very good job, of people who are, who have seen the world, 50 plus age people, because they can direct the youngsters to do the job that is supposed to be done. I totally agree with you. The 24/7 job has to be done by young people, not by older people. I agree with you totally on that.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think has a business model emerged that will be along the lines of what I mentioned, that temples have trustees
This is
who are, yeah, go ahead, please.
this is possible today in India. There is nothing that is stopping us. Like I said, 5 trustees are required. 3 to 5 trustees are required as per law for a temple. They can take a supervisory role. They can employ any number of experts that they want. They think that that they need to support their this thing. They can have a legal team. They can have a finance team. They can have a crowd management team. They can
Yeah.
have event management team.
Mhm.
Nobody stops that. Only thing is that you have to ensure that this is properly documented, properly justified. And to
Yes.
do this justification, I have no issues in government checking whether this justification is right. I have only one issue in the government saying that they're stopping us from doing this. If I as a trustee think that I need 4 lawyers in my department to ensure that all my wealth is taken care of. I'm living in Sri Rangam, the biggest temple in this world, 157 acres. This is the largest living temple in the world. It has got in excess of 2,500 acres of land. It needs it needs a huge team of people to manage this asset. It cannot be 1 or 2 person. It cannot be a 10th pass out. It cannot be a TNPSC pass out. It needs a person who can manage these assets, make sure that the assets give the revenue that they're supposed to give, and that needs a team, expert team, and this has to be justified by the trustee, and then money has to be budgeted for that, and then spent from the coffers of the temple. In excess of 100 crores, the temple makes revenue every single year, 100 crore plus. All this money is only coming from the donations of the devotees, maybe the hundi donation or donation in other forms. 100 crore rupees. Look at it from the business perspective. If a business is making 100 crore turnover every single year with no efforts, what kind of a support staff that is required, administrative staff that is required to manage the temple? This again must be the job of the trustees, and that is where I am saying, even if people want to become trustees, they cannot think like this, because maybe they are retired as a clerk from a bank or from somewhere else. They may be passionate, they may be dedicated to the sampradaya, they may be dedicated to the religion, but they will most probably not have these skill sets to form the team that you just mentioned, which they can guide and then utilize. But what on the other hand, we always see chief ministers of many of the states are uneducated and they still run the state because they have the power to run the state by appointing ministers.
Yeah.
But in with respect to temples, we don't even have anybody who is coming forward, even if he is educated, and they don't have the wherewithal to fight and stand up against the government. Government will never want to lose control of the temple, mind you. They will never want. Why? Because the money that comes into the temple is unaccounted. The money that comes into the temple and money that goes out of the temple is unaccounted. So if there is a hundi, and if Srirangam temple is getting 100 crores of rupees from the hundial, I will guarantee that it will be in excess of 500 crores. What is accounted is only 100 crores.
Can you explain where that money goes then? Who keeps it? The government?
That was exactly
Yeah, I
where
will tell
does
you.
the fund usage happen?
Yeah.
You're talking about that.
What does
the government do with that?
Government is not taking the money legally. Okay. Government is looting the money.
Okay.
Government is looting the money. See, you have to pin the government. The government has got no say in the deposits that are made in the hundis. They have no say. The hundis are supposed to be opened by the trustees of the temple. There are 2 keys for the hundial, and these hundis, 2 keys must be one with you, one with Mr. Sinha, one with Mr. Jha. And let me be the hundi for a minute. And if you want to open me, both of you must be there. Use your keys to open me. Like I said, there are no trustees, first of all. The law says the hundi keys must be with the trustees, but the hundis are opened every single month. And they advertise in the paper saying that today's monthly collection is so much. Where is the money going? Who is ensuring that the money is collected, which is counted properly and it is deposited properly? Nobody. There are clear rules which says how do you collect money from the hundial, how do you count it, how do you deposit. There are very clear rules. Not a single rule is adhered to. I have filed 10 cases with the police for hundial theft on various temples, and the police do not take any action because they are hand in glove with the temple officials. See, the money that is in the hundial, let us say there are 10,000 rupees which is there in the hundial, let us say, for example, and I am depositing, let's say, 3,000 rupees in the bank, saying that is the hundial collection. Nobody is there to cross check whether it is 10,000, 3,000, 7,000, where it went. So the 7,000 rupees is a black money. Is black money, unaccounted money, which is being looted from temples. I am telling this with authentication. I can prove this in every single temple that is under the control of the HRNC department in Tamil Nadu. All the undials are opened illegally because 99.97% of the temples do not have trustees. The law requires the trustees to open the temple, account it. So what we are talking in the street, basically they are those who are saying free the temples, they don't know what is happening in a temple. They just want control of the temple, but they do not know what control they want. Today, as a citizen, if
we have trustees for a temple, will the problem go away?
It will definitely go away, in my opinion. Again, we need people who are capable of doing it, not just trustees for the
No,
sake
no, I
of trustees,
understand. No, I understand that. Supposing if you get the right trustees, will the problem go away?
Yes, it will go away. It will go away. The trustees must be supported with a good support system.
No, no, I
See,
understand that.
like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said, the temples are not going to be given. The government is never going to let the trustees operate. That is how it is going to happen for some time, because they are holding the temples for 100 years. If somebody like Rangarajan or Sinha or Jaw comes to be a trustee of the temple, do you think that they will give you a free hand? They will bother you like anything. When you pass a resolution, they will say that the resolution is not in line with the requirements. Then you have to now fight the system. That is how it is, unfortunately. That is why I term it as a second freedom fight for Hindus in this country.
That brings me to another
It is
question
a
which I
freedom
have.
struggle.
Yeah, Rangarajanji, I have another question
Yes.
to answer here. It seems to me that there is a clearly the same law applied differently to different religious segments. Hindu temples are treated in a particular way. Mosques and churches are not treated the same way. So the question of money then, when it comes in, Hindu temples have a lot of wealth, as you rightly said. That's why it is available to loot, because there are no trustees, there is no management, and the government comes in. When they find a vacuum, they come to collect the money, they loot the money. But the churches and mosques also
Yes.
have a lot of money. You mean to say
But
there
they
is
have people
a
who to guard them. But they have people to guard them. The
okay?
moment you get into the church or a mosque, that community will come forward, and then they will make sure that you will be driven out. Recently, when I went to the Madras High Court, I filed several public interest litigations with regards to temples. I was sitting in the temple in the court, and one person introduced himself to me, and he said, "I'm a father of a church." He was an advocate. The Christian community has encouraged a father to argue his cases, and he comes in on behalf of churches if there are issues in the temple in the churches. Similarly, they have for Muslims and Hindus. We keep shouting, we keep being emotional. We don't do anything on the ground. We don't create lawyers. We don't create administrators. None of the political parties which is saying that when they are in the opposition, they will say that temples must be freed, but they are in the ruling, they will not do anything. They will say, no, we are doing this, we are doing that. They will just drag their feet across, and nobody is interested in ensuring that the talent that is available, that the ecosystem that is required to empower these people is there. So till this kind of a support system is available for Hindus, so that they can go to seek legal help, they can go to seek some other help, that when they need, we will be in the situation, we will be continued to be exploited, the temples will be continued to be looted, and the political parties will continue to say free Hindu temples. There are some organizations which run campaigns on the internet to free Hindu temples. They run the campaign for a few days and they forget about it. I have seen enough number of campaigns in the past 8 years of my active involvement in temple issues. I've
You
been
know, you know,
I've been fighting the cases
you are
since two.
totally right. You are totally right, because these days the media reports that incidents of temple takeover, as if it is become like suddenly people have realized, oh, there is a wealth sitting in temples, let's go and loot it, as you said the word. Whether it's Karnataka, whether it's Rajasthan, whether it's Maharashtra, everywhere politicians are trying to capture the temples. Now, one thing which I do know, there was a time, as you rightly mentioned, the kings and others, they protected the temples, they funded the temples, they supported the temple, and temple administration was perfectly fine. Like it is the same analogy can run, that India was once upon a time at 26% of the world trade without English. But there are people who will say, oh,
Correct.
but for British English, we would not have been connected with the world. But we had Sanskrit, we had Sanatan. Every principle that exists in the world today has its own Sanatan origin. So the question here is,
Yes.
again, I'll address it to Dr. Praveen Sinhaji, is that, the problem that we are hearing from Narasimhanji, unless he is totally wrong, the entire responsibility is with Hindus then. creating,
It is with
we
Hindus.
talked about the demand part of it. We are not creating the demand. We are not paying the people well. And there is so much wealth in the temple, they certainly can hire a good accountant, a good lawyer, or a good banker, a good asset manager. Why is it not happening? Does the law prevent Hindu temples to be run that they ought to be run? That's my question. It's not that Hindus are idiots or buffoons or they don't know. We are all very educated people. So where does the problem lie in terms of solution? Where do we
I,
go from here?
I think based on what I've heard from Mr. Narasimha is that the law is pretty clear. There is no doubt about the law. The way it is implemented is the problem. And there's also a problem in
Yes,
terms of having the right people who can do the job. And he definitely
yes,
feels that there's a shortage of people who can run a temple, who are competent enough and who have the know-how to run a temple and meet all of its religious and other objectives that are supposed to be met. I think from that point of view, so I think that's what I see as the problem. And maybe some lawyers are needed to get the government out of the way and implement the law the way it was intended rather than the way it stands at this time. Um, but let me ask one quick question in this regard to Narasimhaji is there any temple, in your opinion, in South or North, anywhere, which is run the way you want it to run, with proper trustees, having proper controls, and running it the way it is supposed to be running? Is there any such temple that you know of?
yeah, there are quite a few temples which are run by private people, which is effectively run. There are no issues. They don't collect money from the devotees for darshan. They don't discriminate people between haves and have-nots for darshan. There are several temples in Kerala where the devotees are not fleeced with of their money from their pocket for having darshan, for having preference over for the others for religious activities inside the temple. There are several temples in Tamil Nadu also, private temples. There is one in Trichy which is very well run, an Ayyappa temple, beautifully managed. There is no single issue there. People come happily, have darshan, happily do their religious activities there. They do their dhyana, they do their sadhanas there, and then they go home very peacefully. There are temples. It is not that they are not there. The issue is that when you talk about such temples, immediately, like Mr. Jas said, there is an attempt by the government to stranglehold these trustees. They will come and then say, I am taking over this temple without any cause. The law clearly says that if you are supposed to have a supervisory control, like the word takeover is itself illegal. No temple can be taken over by anybody for that matter. It's a public property. It's public property belonging to Hindus for Hindus, particularly to a certain sampradaya. Other sampradayas can come and have darshan. That is not an issue. But when the law is very clear that there is not a single word in any of the law that I know of that allows anybody to take over the temple, but the government audaciously says that I am taking over a temple today because I feel that there is mismanagement. Because I got 4 complaints from some unknown sources, they don't disclose the complaint, they don't disclose what action they have taken, and they use this as a technique because they have the power, they have the police, they have the law support the staff, and they have the power, everything under their bureaucracy under their control. So they can very clearly say that I am going to stranglehold you if you are not going to yield me. The problem is when such stranglehold happens, where is the community which will support these people? Who is supporting them? The moment a temple next door to me is strangleholded by this government, the next temple guy gets shivers. He simply says, I am not going to look into what is happening there because if I peep into that place, I am going to be the next target. And what happens, there are several other private temples which also bribe these government people to be away from this temple. They also do that. They just bribe these people to get a good report from them so that the government will not take over. Imagine the kind of money that is being given away for what? We are creating a corrupt system by yielding to these pressures. The reason why we are yielding to these pressures is that as a society, as a Hindu community, We have not thought wide enough. We have not thought what is required for the community. What are all the checks and balances that is required? How can I safeguard my property? How can I safeguard my religion? Primarily, we need legal support. Legal support, not which is going to uh, cost the heavens to anybody. It has to be free, and it has to be voluntary, and it has to be dedicated. Those people who are giving the legal support must be funded by everybody else. This, I do not know what you call. You may call it as a social responsibility of somebody, but these people must be dedicated. Unless, like I said, it is another freedom struggle. When India fought for freedom, several people sacrificed their lives. It did not come overnight. Those who fought for freedom never enjoyed freedom. So we should also be ready to fight that long battle. Have some people who will dedicate themselves for the cause, not looking for immediate 2 minute noodle kind of a result, that I go today and I have to take over everything. Tomorrow every temple will be freed. It's not going to happen. Let us not be live in a dream world. Let us be practical. First of all, we don't have people to manage. Second of all, we don't have support staff to manage. Who is going to create these things? Who is going to create? Is it government is going to create? If the government creates, it's going to have the control again. So it cannot be the government. We have to go back to the Sanatana way. Sanatana way always had their religious heads as the leaders. Religious heads. That is what is happening in elsewhere. You just now said in USA, it is the pastors who run the show, not the trustees. Who are the pastors? They are religious leaders. When a religious leader of that community is being recognized, what is happening to our religious leaders? You see, they are being persecuted. They are also being pressed hard with their foot on their throat. They are not made to speak. If you
No, you're
speak,
right.
then you will be in jail. So
Now that,
in every
we have
aspect.
we have 3 minutes to close now, but it's very, very interesting
Okay.
conversation we have had here, because you have raised the issue of responsibility. The Hindus have the responsibility
Yes.
to take over. They have the responsibility to come forward. We have temples are rich, they can afford to hire a Praveen Sinha, an accountant or a banker like me, to manage assets or manage the books. As the saying goes, we have to prevent government, as to borrow your word, looting the temple funds. No, what the government
Yes.
does after looting the funds, nobody knows, right? And if
Nobody knows.
or if the money coming in hundis are the cash money that is coming in, nobody knows what the source of that money is concerned. So the whole thing is playing into our own system of self-destruction. My question here is
Yes.
again, is that what does what do people need to do then? Because money is not a problem. And
Okay.
in a country of 1.3 billion people can't say we have not no people.
Okay.
They're
So
looking for jobs. Praveen,
let, let me quickly add one thing here.
Sure.
I think we got a glimpse of the problem. The problem probably is more deeper than what were able to talk for the time we had.
yes.
I may be talking to Yogi Adityanath ji in the next few days. I think we can find a more dedicated person than him. I'll try to figure out what is happening in UP. Maybe UP can become a model that the rest of the country can emulate. So thank you for informing me, Rangarajan ji, about this problem. I'll definitely bring it up to Yogi ji when I talk to
Good.
him.
There is a need for discussion of this kind, because you are totally right. Politicians have a way of doing things. They do things for their vote and their seat. That's that is the bottom line there. Wherever they can get money, wherever they can capture votes, they play that game. The
Yes.
question is, why would
Yes.
they? I mean, look at India today. I mean, we have just 1 minute. I'll just a closing statement. India is being attacked. Indian festivities are being attacked. Everything is being attacked on ecological factors or pollution factors. Our processions are being hurt, and we are 80% of the population. There are people within, there is a violence going around on our festivities. Now, government needs to do something about it. We can't be so bad people. We are essentially free people. Sanatan is about universal principles. So, I am of that thought. We need to have more conversation on this. As Praveenji mentioned, that we probably have touched upon some very core issues. And that's where it is important. And I have said this on this show, and I will say this again: science and technology is with us. Today, from Trichy, from California, from New York, we are connecting at the same time, live. If we are not able to propagate our virtues to the rest of the world, the Sanatan principles, then the organized mafia will control our life. That's what happens. So we are clearly, you are pointed out a very important part, that Hindus must, what Swami Vivekananda ji said, arise, awaken, and assert, to which I add my fourth A, act. You are acting with the lawsuits, taking the care of the law. So thank you very much for being part of the show today and taking all the trouble in the bad light, bad rain, and everything else. But it is a real pleasure. And Dr. Praveen Sinha ji, thank you so much. You are always ready to pitch in with for me, and I'm glad about that. So very glad to have you as a friend and a thinker. And whenever you have your conversation with Yogi Aditya, Aditya ji, Yogi, what is that? Why am I forgetting that thing? Yogi,
Adityanath ji. Yogi
Aditya,
Adityanath.
that's my son's name, actually. So I would say that, I hope you have a more very constructive talk in actually handling the issue. And I think problem is simple. If you look at it, we just have to find people. In a country of 1.3 billion people, it's impossible to believe what Rangarajan ji said, that we can't find 3 people to become trustees. On this happy note, as I always say, Satyamev Jayate. One closing comment from Praveen ji, and one closing comment in 30 seconds for you, both of you.
I think I want to thank Rangarajan ji for bringing this important issue to me. It happened on Twitter in a very unexpected fashion when he challenged me. And I think it makes people awake. I would say that would be the right word. We hear a lot, but sometimes we speak without knowing. And I thank you for informing us and giving us a sense of the problem. Thank you, Rangarajan ji.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm glad that I was able to give a perspective. I'm really glad, because of the 8 year struggle, I am able to do something today, which I think I'm hopeful that it will take some shape. On the note that Swami Vivekananda asked for 100 people, 100 youth, that he can change this country. This land of a billion is still yet to give this 100 youth to Vivekananda ji.
Youth, okay.
That
I
is
don't
the
qualify in the category of youth, but if it comes to bringing 100 youth,
we are all
let's
youth.
work on it then. Let's work on it. Okay, time is up. Want to thank you so much, Narasimha ji, from Trichy with rain and with umbrella. It was very unique experience. Delight to hear you, and we'll talk to you again. Thank you very much, Praveen. Have a good day.
Same here.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.